Yeah, the only thing I don't like about it was there was like no Eagles, no Take It. You can't tell me in Austin, Texas in 1976 the song Take It Easy wasn't being played.
Don Henley, a Texas guy.
Sounds right.
Welcome in to another episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast where if you're like us and you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stores, and this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs. Joining me are my co-host, Dakota Lowry.
What's up, everybody?
And Ernie Ferguson.
You got to keep on living, man. Livin.
Wow, such a quotable. That's like one of the big quotes from this movie, isn't it? Man, I'm kind of surprised you remember that one.
That, you can see why they made Matthew McConaughey's part bigger than it originally was. I mean, party at the Moon Tower, all right. Yes, he was a pedophile, I say the same age. They're younger, but I stay the same age, that or whatever. I mean, it's just, but he was great. But yeah, I can party at the Moon Tower. I can't tell you how many times I said that in college. And of course, this is when I was headed to the library. Before I was a pillar of the community, but just ripping that off all the time with party at the Moon Tower, or it'd be a lot cooler if you did, just all the time.
I've heard the LIVIN quote. I thought he said in a speech or something recently that when he received an Oscar or something. I don't remember what it was, but I didn't realize it was from this movie. I didn't realize it was from that he was quoting this movie when he did that.
But then you had stuff like the stoner guy talking about Martha Washington was a hip chick or something like that. Just weird stuff all the time. Again,
there's a lot of off-the-wall things in this movie.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, this is a caricature. I can't even say it. Caricature of Ernie's high school life.
Not quite. Part of it, yes. Like the drive.
I said that sarcastically.
Well, I mean, I yes and no, because like driving around, not knowing what to do, but just literally just driving around, going from different places to different places. I 100%.
Kids still do that today. I will say kids can relate to that today because they still. I hear about that all the time, especially when I was a youth pastor, about kids just riding around, meeting up at the Walmart parking lot because it's all there is to do in Bolton, Alabama.
But like the paddling new upcoming freshmen or the air raids and stuff like that. Now that was like. I 100% believe that happened, but it never happened to me, and I never saw anything like that, But
me and Dakota had a discussion if the hazing was going to be another thing that Ernie was just going to be like, well, that's just what they did back then. Like no, that makes it okay.
No. Now, being in athletics, I've heard about that stuff. I never experienced that stuff. And my brother
would be more like fraternities and sorority type of things. I don't really feel like it'd be on a full school-wide thing type,
I don't know. In the 70s, I can 100%. Well, because I thought David Linklater, the guy who I think did the movie, it was based on a lot of his stuff, his life, and like him growing up. And I wouldn't be surprised back then. I mean, because again, drinking age was 18. It wasn't 21. I can distinctly remember my brother who graduated high school in 86. No, 89. No, 86. See, 80 something. I don't remember what, late 80s. There were cigarette vending machines in the school. Like literally, the good old fashioned pull ones. But I remember just as a kid, just wandering around, just pulling them, But again, just cigarettes, and they were like, at first, kids just smoked on the outside. Then they put them in a little gated area where they could smoke. Then they finally said, "Oh no, wait, you can't smoke on school." So I mean, and that's like I said, that's mid to late '80s that's happening, and we're talking about mid '70s here. You know,
Well, there was the pregnant woman who was picking up cigarettes. She had the cigarette in her mouth in the convenience store. I mean,
well, yeah, that's the same place that Mitch bought the beer too. You know, Mitch, who looks like he's all of 12 years old, that guy didn't care.
Yeah, the middle school, or I guess now they're freshman boys in this, looked like middle school becoming freshman boys. The middle school girls becoming freshman girls did not look like middle school becoming freshman girls.
No,
absolutely not.
But working in a middle school, I mean, you can see where maturity hits girls faster than boys, because when the boys go from 8th grade to 9th grade, you're like, dude, you literally shot up like 4 inches, you know, and it's you know, all the maturity type of stuff. But yeah, no, you're right though. The 4 middle school boys that they showed didn't look anything like the ages of the quote unquote graduating middle school girls either.
But anyways, this week we're doing Dazed and Confused. This is Ernie's pick. He wanted to do a movie pick for back to school, so he picked a movie where they get out of school.
Get out of school. I had a hard time thinking of a movie where I had a hard time thinking of a movie where it was like the beginning of school. I guess 10 things I hate about you was that.
I always think of Grease too, because they did that back to school song at the end. I went around singing that before, even when I was out of high school. I wasn't even in school anymore. I'm just going around singing that song.
Well, Grease also started off at the beginning of the school year too. I did consider Grease. We were talking before we got on air. You know, I was talking to Dakota. I was like, man, 4 of my 18 picks are high school movies. I said, and he said, yeah, it's almost like you taught in high school. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, see, Dakota's the nice guy. I would have been like, sounds like you want to go back to high school, go relive the glory days.
Good Lord, no, 100% no. You know, awkwardness, and that's one of those things. You know, looking at this, a certain part of me like identifies with Randall Pink Floyd, only because he is the one character that truly bounces around to different groups. Like, I had a bunch of, I would say, quote friends. No, not a bunch of close ones, but I could easily go into different groups just because. I mean, I was a mile wide and an inch deep as far as knowing people and things like that. But that's where I kind of bounced around just at different groups. So I kind of felt that, you know. So, you know, that's one thing that I saw there. It was really kind of cool about this whole entire movie is that, unlike the 80s or even 10 Things I Hate About You, where they had, you know, those specific groups that you only hang out with, Breakfast Club, you'll see that there are representations of these 5 different groups. In this one, you know, everybody pretty much like interacted with everybody, no matter what kind of group you were.
Well, Dazed and Confused is a 1993 American coming-of-age comedy film written and directed by Richard Linklater. The film follows a variety of teenagers on the last day of school in Austin, Texas in 1976. The film has no single protagonist or central conflict. Rather, it follows interconnected plot threads among different social groups and characters, such as rising ninth graders undergoing hazing rituals, a football star's refusal to sign a clean living pledge for his coach, and various characters hanging out at a pool hall. The film features a large ensemble cast of actors who would later become stars, including Ben Affleck, Mila Jovovich, Cole Hauser, Parker Posey, Adam Goldberg, Matthew McConaughey, Nicky Katt, Joey Lauren Adams, Rory Cochrane, and Anthony Rapp. Released on September 24th, 1993, Dazed and Confused was a commercial disappointment at the box office, grossing less than $8 million on a budget of $6.9 million, but the film later found success on the home video market and has since become a cult classic. It ranked 3rd on Entertainment Weekly magazine's list of the 50 best high school movies. The magazine also ranked it 10th on its funniest movies of the past 25 years list. Reviewers have praised the film for its faithful and humanistic depiction of the setting and of high school life. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It talks about how there's no single protagonist or central conflict. I was, looking through the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, which, by the way, it has a 94% on there. Yeah. It was pretty high, I think.
Yeah.
And one of the reviews I really liked, it said the meaningless of the movie is the meaning of, or like the meaningless of us all is the meaning of the movie, and I like that. I mean, there is no like it says, conflict. There's no really plot there, but it's just a depiction of high school life, and it does it very well.
Yeah, it's a snapshot of life, and it's all about the not useless conversations, but the conversations about nothing. Like, I can remember one year I was coaching. Literally listened to a couple of my kids have an argument about what was better, pirates or ninjas, and I'm like, what? I mean, like, one of them said like Jesus was a ninja because ninjas could run on water. So I was like, what? What are you talking about? But that's, I mean, like, again, they were talking about George Washington and his alien cult, and growing hemp or marijuana, and
And
that's
his wife.
yeah, and his wife's a hip chick, and that is high school life, that's exactly what it is. So yes, it was a movie about nothing, but to me that's the beauty of the movie, is that it just shows everyday life, and sometimes you need to see conversations, you need to watch conversations, and have that in there, because I think that's what makes it an unusual movie.
It also does a great job of depicting the 70s, and I don't just mean the clothing or the music, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but just the way it's filmed. Within the first 10 minutes, I had to go look and remind myself what year it came out, because I thought like it looked like it was filmed not long after 1976. I mean, it looked like it was filmed in the late 70s. I mean, they did a fantastic job with literally putting you basically in a time capsule that goes back to 1976, not just filming a movie that takes place there in that year, not there. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you, if there's two things that this movie really does have, though, it is an awesome soundtrack. The soundtrack was great throughout the whole movie. But man, the cars that these kids drove around, man. I feel like that was the one maybe unrealistic part of it. Is like, I don't know how many kids are going to be riding around in a. But then again, I'm saying this as somebody from the 20th century, of some of these trucks and stuff like that. That I'm like, oh, hey, I'd love to have some of these trucks, but to them, these trucks are just like, oh yeah, it came out 10 years ago. Like it's the same way we would look at like an S10 or something like that now. It's just, to me, I'm like, hey, those are extremely nice vehicles, but I'm sure to them, I guess now that I think about that,
they weren't fancy cars. They weren't. Yeah, they weren't, because we don't have muscle cars, but that's all they had in the 70s for those muscle cars. So again, it's not it. What I think, Wooderson's car was probably the most, kind of decked out type of thing. He had a good paint job, but everybody else's, they weren't great paint jobs. We were just looking at him in our time frame, going, dude, that's such a sweet car. Even the coach's Bronco that he had, I was like, man, I want that. I want that car. Yes, I want to step on the gas, and I want to lose half my tank of gas in the first mile that I drive it, because it just would, And yes, okay, it's leaded gasoline. That's fine. It has an 8-track in there. Sure, why not? Let's go. I still want that car. It's it's awesome.
The nostalgia hits deep.
Yeah.
Huh?
The nostalgia hits deep, didn't it?
Oh, it does. I mean,
I was thinking as I was watching this, because I'm 29 now, so I think if you were 18 in 1976, you would be about 34 or 35 when this came out. So we can watch it now and appreciate it, but I'm just thinking, like, if you were actually like of that age in 1976, watching this in 1993, what a time capsule that would have been.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I didn't see this in a movie theater, but I guarantee you, in my dorm and apartment in college, this VHS tape got it run over, because we watched it so many times.
Ran a million miles on the tape.
Yeah, because again, I think I am a guy in movies that I like the relationship parts between people. I do like some interesting conversation too, and it's just looking at this movie, there is no Matthew McConaughey. I know there's big names in it, but there wasn't. It truly, there was no central focus. Yeah, Pink Floyd was probably the him and Mitch were probably the two most characters that had the most eyes on them. But again, it wasn't centered on them, you know.
What's the biggest point of the movie? I mean, him facing the dilemma of signing that thing. I mean, as far as movie dilemmas or whatever you want to call them, plots go, it's pretty weak. Not weak. That's a bad word. It's not. You know what I'm trying to say. It's not
the central focus of the movie, you know. But I mean, I guess it kind of is about. I can't remember what was it. Don, his friend, was talking about.
I mean, there is no central focus. I'm just saying. I mean, it's the closest thing you can grab to.
No, it's about living. You know, I think like his friend Livin, man. You know, but his friend was talking about that he just wants to, you know, it wants his life to have a good time. The redhead mentioned about it, you know, like why be miserable now if, you know, have a good time. It is about the here and now, which is that's a big 70s going to the 80s mentality anyways of the here and now. Let's enjoy what we got and have a good time, you know? And it's just real interesting to see all these different characters just try to have a good time, except like Ben Affleck's character and Parker Posey's character, who were the big D-bags for the one for the girls and one for the guys, you know, that were just, I mean, because after the four guys lit up Mitch, you know, all but Affleck were like cool with him, but Affleck was still being Affleck, you know, and so, you know, and there's guys like that. They said he failed his senior year, so he can do this again 2 times.
Yeah, and then but he's still on the football team. Like,
yes.
Don't you have like? Isn't it kind of like college where you have like so many years? Like
not
you fail,
70s,
you can't.
Not in the 70s.
Not in the 70s.
No. So I mean, there ain't no rules in the 70s.
But as Dakota said, though, the soundtrack is just great. I've told him so many times that I was born in the wrong generation. Because all these songs just come banger after banger. These songs that I grew up with, that I'm like, oh yeah, I know that one. Every single one that comes out, every single one that they play.
You start off with Aerosmith, and you finish with Slow Ride, and there's not a song that gets put on there that you go, oh, womp womp. You know, it's all like, dude, my headphones won't turn up any more than this. I'm like, let's go, kind of thing. And again, that's one of those things where I think someone like a James Gunn has figured out that the music that you put in a movie really, really can make or break something. Like Purple Rain. Purple Rain's an awful movie. But
so bad.
But you put that music. But if we ever do this, and one of the things I'll talk about is there's 2 movies. There's the acting part of the movie, and then there's the club scenes where they're playing music, and that you have a 0 on one end, and you have a 10 out of 10 on the other end. And it's just the dumbest, fantastic.
I'm sorry, I have to say this because I don't know when we'll do this movie, but the dumbest thing about Purple Rain is the entire movie they're talking about how trash the music that the Prince character is playing is, and it's just the soundtrack to the Purple Rain soundtrack, and I'm like, this is so stupid. They're like, this music sucks, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But anyways, that's neither here nor there. If we ever do the movie, we can expand on that. But I just had to put that in there since you brought it up.
But also, like, you know, what's the last thing that they're doing? Going to go get Aerosmith tickets. You know, that was kind of
back in the day where high schoolers could go get concert tickets. Nowadays, you have to spin an arm and a leg just to go.
Yeah, you know. One thing also I think Linklater did with this movie is that everything that was playing in the movie did not come out after 1976. So all these songs would have been out by then because they also talked about he really wanted a Led Zeppelin song, but it had come out after 1970. The song he wanted came out after 1976, so he didn't put it in there. And that's one of those things that I kind of appreciate about somebody that does a movie is looking at like kind of the historical accuracies, for lack of a better word. But I like that little push that he had in there too.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about it was there was like no Eagles, no Take It. You can't tell me in Austin, Texas in 1976 the song "Take It Easy" wasn't being played.
Don Henley, a Texas guy,
That's my only gripe about the soundtrack. About a 9.99 soundtrack.
I think one thing is I think the majority of the money that they spend on music went to the Aerosmith song, and so I don't think you could probably spend that money on an Eagles and an Aerosmith song. The other ones, probably the next biggest one would probably be the ZZ Top song, even though it's not one of their biggest hits. So that may be
they had a Skinner and a Kiss song in there too.
So I'd be interested to see how
Freebird
much
that was in there. I don't think Freebird was in there.
No, it was Tuesday's Gone.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. What Hotel California came out in 1976. So
yeah,
I don't know. So yeah, I can see that, but I guess stoners do listen to the Eagles too, since warm smell of colitas.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like you mentioned earlier, though. This isn't a movie just about stoners, though. I mean, this is a whole diverse group of people. I mean, it's basically
I don't know. I mean, a main part of the movie is this high school quarterback doesn't want to sign a pledge that he's not going to do drugs in the summer.
Yeah, but I mean,
movie's kind of about stoners.
The movie's kind of about stoners.
It wasn't just that, though. It was drugs, it was drinking, and it was sex. So I mean,
wasn't there a big thing in like churches in the 70s that made kids sign this, or like a purity pledge or something like that?
I don't know if I remember it in the 80s, the purity pledges. So I don't know.
I don't know.
Again, the 70s. I just don't see that happen in the 70s because it was. I mean,
you know what else I don't see happened in the 70s? A quarterback throwing for 2,000 yards, which is what that old man said.
100%.
1976. I was like, okay, 2,000 yards.
Yeah,
maybe
I don't
in
think
his
so
whole
either.
career. Well, on May 28th, 1976, the last day of school at Lee High School in Austin, Texas, the following year's group of seniors prepared the annual hazing of incoming freshmen. Randall Pink Floyd, the school's star football player, is asked to sign a pledge of promising not to take drugs during the summer or do anything that would jeopardize the goal of a championship season. When classes end, the incoming freshman boys are hunted down by the seniors and paddled. The incoming girls are rounded up in the school parking lot by senior girls, led by Darla, covered in mustard, ketchup, flour, and raw eggs, and forced to propose to senior boys.
Anything you want.
The hazing part is, I don't know what's going on in 1976, but you talk about stuff that would not fly these days.
Teachers can't paddle students, much less students paddle other students nowadays.
Oh, my favorite was the black teacher that was sitting there cracking up as they were there in the megaphone.
Yeah,
we're in the jungle. 50 of us came in. We knew 25 weren't coming back. As Mitch and his friends were asking for a head start to be able to leave. Now, all the teachers are like, hey, suck it up.
Did you see that slide they had from the top of one of the classrooms? Was that a thing? Did you miss that at the school building? Yeah, when they let the middle school kids out, one of the kid in the classroom on the top floor goes out the window and slides down a huge slide.
Oh, I noticed that because one of them slides down and like immediately jumps on the bike.
Yeah, you didn't see that?
I must have been looking down when that happened.
I was like, that was pretty cool. I kind of wish I went to a high school that had that. I ain't gonna lie. Which East Lawrence didn't have multiple stories anyways, but
no.
I can't believe as many times as you've seen this, Ernie, I can't believe you missed that.
No, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I hate to do that to you.
Ernie, you're supposed to be the school guy, okay? You're supposed to pay attention to these things.
I'm also supposed to not have ADD also, but I have been diagnosed with AD.
You used to be.
Thank you, Dakota. I'm glad you got that.
You used to have ADHD, but you dropped the H. You're too old now, right?
Exactly. I'm definitely not hyper.
Well, as day fades to night, freshman Mitch Kramer escapes the initial hazing with his best friend Carl Burnett, but is later cornered after a baseball game and violently paddled. Fred O'Banion, a senior participating in the hazing tradition for a second year after failing to graduate, delights in punishing Mitch. Pink gives the injured Mitch a ride home and offers to take him cruising with friends that night. Plans for the evening are ruined when Kevin Pickford's parents discover his intention to host a keg party. Elsewhere, the intellectual trio of Cynthia Dunn, Tony Olson, and Mike Newhouse decides to participate in the evening's festivities. Pink and his friend David Wooderson, a man in his early 20s who still socializes with high school kids, pick up Mitch and head for the Emporium, a pool hall frequented by teens. Yeah, they nailed some of the stereotypes. The guy who, they're basically both two different types of people that are stuck in high school. One who's still in high school, literally stuck there. But Ben Affleck did a great job. I didn't even realize it was. I knew he was in the movie, but I was waiting. I was like, when is Ben Affleck going to come in? And then I realized that was him. I didn't really realize it was him at first.
Yeah, he did a really good job of. I mean, I'm not expecting anybody to have a Texas accent, but if you're from Boston and you do not an awful job of a Southern Texas accent, I was like, okay, that's not bad.
Oh my goodness! Let me tell you, Callie's been watching this show that takes place in Massachusetts, some town in Massachusetts, and this dude on there, has a Southern accent. And it is so bad. It's so bad. I mean, you just some people, I give him credit because a lot of people can't do Southern accents.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. He did it really well. I'll tell you, my favorite trio was the trio that are the intellectual ones or whatever that you talk about. That they're just sitting there debating about should we go out, should we not, should we do this, should we do that. Then the whole spiel. I think one scene they were sitting in the car and he goes on this whole thing about not wanting to go into law school and all this because he doesn't like the people that he would be defending. And it was those three. I think that was probably related a little bit more to myself in high school, where I didn't really have that friends and I didn't go out and socialize and stuff. And so I probably would have been in the same boat where it's like, should I go out? Should I not? Should I go? Should I not? I don't know. And Dakota stayed home.
I did too. I was very much a homebody in high school.
For the most part, I did too. I don't like people, so I was like,
who would have knew? The guys doing a movie podcast are all nerds.
I'll tell you what, Mitch, that kid's got that kid. He's sitting there pumping strikes while these guys are hitting their paddles, and they're threatening him and stuff like that. And his friends are looking to, help get away for him to help them get out of getting paddled too. I said he had some stroke there too.
Yeah, he had some swagger about it because he was just like, I know I can throw the strike, but I just don't want to because I don't want the game. I don't know if I want the game
to. Which then his friend though, his mom that brought the shotgun out at Ben Affleck. Oh God! But then they stuck their head out back at him and just made him even more mad right after that. That was hilarious. That is very Texas also.
Well, mom throwing the shotgun at the door. I think that's pretty staple of middle schoolers and high schoolers interacting with each other. When you have the high schooler that's going to bully him or whatever, then taunting him when he can't do it.
That was also a pretty cool middle school baseball field they were playing on.
Yes,
just want to put that out there. And I did like the little things they do. Small town high school life. The old man, I mentioned him coming up and talking to him about how much they need him next season, and I know I laughed at him throwing 2,000 yards, but hey, man, you get in these small towns, those teams mean a lot to a lot of people, so that's pretty realistic. Seeing someone like that, coming, I don't even know if he knew who that was, but just talking about how much they need him for that season, especially in Texas.
Yeah. And then, also the students' interaction in school with the teachers, just the teachers, period. Like when Don's hitting on the one teacher, it just that kind of goes, makes me go, ugh. But I can 100% see that happening somewhere, and this just them wandering around campus, going in and out, not even going to class, just, kind of wandering, which again, I think at that point in time, I think that probably they didn't necessarily care about attendance per se, because I don't think the government cracked down on attendance policies at that point in time.
And this is one thing that I told Kamei when we watched this movie was I've never had a last day of school like that. Majority of the last days of school that I've had to attend, most of them I weren't there, but The few that I did have to go to school, there was like 15 people there, maybe tops, and then we just left. And I mean that was it. There wasn't everybody rushing the hallways and rushing to get into their cars and all that stuff. I mean, it was just I don't know. And of course, I mean, I know it's a movie and it's a very movie style last day of school, but even like I never saw that or experienced that
it must be based in something.
Because it's got to come from somewhere. It's just I've never seen it personally.
Like Greece, again, and I know that's an over-exaggeration, but they have a festival at the very end of they're done. And that's a lot. You see a lot of these movies that come from this era, the 80s or something like that, that they picture like that last day of school, everybody kind of running out and all that kind of stuff, and I'm
the
like,
papers getting thrown, and
But again, to me, I was like, at the end of the school year, before we got exemptions for final exams, it was like, dude, I'm so tired. I'm just ready. Let me get out of here. I'm not running out of anywhere, But then also, I guess one difference between now is you're still going to contact your friends online, on your phones and stuff like that. Whereas, again, for me, it was like I had to call them on the phone or drive to go see them. So, you might be kind of sad at that time not to be able to see your people. So, or you're just running I guess they're just making beer runs at that point in time, or looking to throw bowling balls at cars or trash cans at mailboxes too.
This is also when Matthew McConaughey's character comes in, and I mean he's even though he's not, I guess technically not the main character of the movie. I mean he pretty much is, just from his performance. And even though I hadn't seen this movie, I had seen plenty of clips of him in this movie, memes and everything. I mean, there, that all right has followed him around his entire career.
Mm-hmm. And he, like I said, we have quoted him so many times from this movie, and like they said, the one guy who was hosting the party, at the beginning of the movie, who was supposed to have the party, he was supposed to have a bigger part in the movie, but I think there were some issues with him and Mila Jovovich, or I think that's her name. They started to be together, and she was 16 at the time, and there's some other little problems with that too. And so they took a lot of the parts that Matthew McConaughey had was supposed to go to him, and so that's where they kind of pulled that. But I mean, you talk about a single character that doesn't come in for, golly, 45 minutes, first 45 minutes of the movie, is he not in or something like that? And when he drives up and he just starts,
it didn't seem like that much.
Well, the timing of this movie kind of threw me off about how things long lasted, but he wasn't in. It was a while. It was at the.
I would probably say closer to 30 minutes. I mean, this movie's only an hour and 45 minutes.
That's true. So I mean, but he shows up late. But I mean, you can tell he's from Texas, and he's playing the little stoner guy, and he's just having to have a good time, man. That's what he wants, and it just he really kind of just. I mean, he's talking about what everybody wants to be able to do, and things of that nature, and he's the deep philosophical one, even though I'm still chasing freshmen, man. It's just it's such a good side character, and again, a side character that you remember the most.
But really, this whole movie is just a bunch of side characters coming together to make a movie.
Yep. And that's why I love that.
It works.
I love that you have different stories throughout the whole entire movie. You have different conversations throughout the whole entire movie. You have different actors that are holding their own throughout the whole entire movies. And that, to me, is fascinating. I like that it's not one person doing all the heavy carrying, because if you have one major character that's doing all the heavy lifting, and they're not on screen, then you're like, am I supposed to be paying attention? Well, here, no matter how big or small of what's going on the screen, it's something different. It's just a different character that you're getting pulled into. And I'm like, man, this is kind of fascinating. And that's the one thing I remember as I watched this movie. Earlier, when I first started watching this movie, it was all about the one-liners. That's why I loved the movie. Was one-liners. But now, I probably haven't seen this movie in 15, maybe 20 years. And now watching it, I'm like, dude, it's just a good movie. Again, I mean, it's a funnier Seinfeld movie because it really has nothing to do with anything, but it has the one-liners, and it just has different stories that you're in story A and you're walking around, and all of a sudden story A is interlining with story B, and now that story B takes you somewhere, and it just kind of flows. And I like the flow of the movie like that.
See, I do like that, but I think on the kind of the opposite side of that, though, I do wish it had more of an overarching plot. I do wish that it had more of a kind of a just essential. I'm fine with all the side stuff that's going on and everything that's happening on the side, and then all wraps up and tidies up in a nice little bow at the end of the movie. But I kind of wish that it had one string like through the middle that just kind of like one plot line that pulled the whole thing along. This really just kind of felt like they just told a bunch of kids to go out there and be like, oh, okay, we're going to watch you as a bunch of high schoolers, act like you're from the 70s, and let's go. And that's really all this kind of felt. And then it's not that I didn't enjoy the movie per se. It's more, it didn't keep me hooked. You know what I mean? It didn't keep me wanting to come back. Just to keep watching. I had to watch this in 2 sittings, and I'm honest, it was kind of hard to go back and finish the second half of it.
One thing I think that to me that helps this movie is it's one day. And I think you can kind of get away with some of that stuff that you didn't particularly care about because it is one day. And so you are literally just taking a snapshot of a day of these kids. If you were trying to do this, but you said this was like in a week, a month, or half a year, and you're trying to do this, then I don't think it flies as well. I think you have to have a storyline. But this is literally just like I said, I think the original concept of this movie was literally 2 people in a car driving around having a conversation while ZZ Top played. That was the original brainchild of this movie. So you can kind of see a little bit of that spliced through there, even when they're listening to ZZ Top as they're driving too. You can kind of see that where the original thought of Linkletter, anyways, conversation is Linkletter's like thing. If you've ever seen Before Sunrise or it was with Ethan Hawke and I can't remember the other girl, it's literally a movie about talking. I didn't particularly care about it, but there's a lot of people that call it this great, wonderful movie because it was all about talking. I didn't fall in love with that as much, and that's where that's one thing that I think it's very big that it is set for one day because you can get away with not having a true storyline, like in my opinion. Now, again, I also understand that is also a turnoff that it doesn't have a true storyline. Again, it's just one of the that goes back to kind of preferences to me, I think.
Well, it's also that I think this movie really fits the definition of a cult classic.
Yes,
because you have people who are really love because it bombed at the office. I mean, yes. it really did. It barely made the budget back.
It bombed at the office. We need to put that on a shirt. No, I'm saying it's a little catchy little. It bombed at the office.
It really did though. I mean, it barely made back a little more than what the budget was, and now like. You have people that absolutely love this movie, and then you have people just like I don't get it, I don't see it, and I really think this if any movie we've done really fits the definition of a cult classic, this would be it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
Well, as the night progresses, students loiter around the Emporium, listen to rock music, cruise the neighborhood, and frequent a local drive-through restaurant. Mitch is introduced to sophomore Julie Sims, with whom he shares a mutual attraction. While cruising again with Pink, Pickford, and Don Dawson, Mitch drinks beer and smokes marijuana for the first time. After a game of mailbox baseball, a neighborhood resident brandishing a gun threatens to call the police. They barely escape after he fires at their car. After returning to the Emporium, Mitch runs into his middle school friends and hatches a plan with them to exact revenge on Albanian. The freshmen dump paint on him from a roof, causing him to leave in a rage.
I will say, I think this is one of my favorite parts of the movie here. The whole, and then you see this, the way that they transition between scenes, like when they go, but from the beginning where they're going from the kids going home, after the school lets out and everything, and then riding around the cars. And then when even later on when it goes from the baseball field to where the Mitch is getting out and then go into the Emporium, and even here where they're leaving the Emporium and going around to the Sonic or what's that driving restaurant in Holton? The
Cardinal,
the Cardinal. There, I knew it was a bird, but I mean like.
the Blue Jay.
Like you bet you with them all going to this, you have these really cool moments where you just have a great song playing, and then you see these, in my opinion, these really awesome cars driving around on the streets, and and you just see the kids kind of vibing and going on. There's no dialogue. There's really nothing going on, nothing happening. I thought it was a really cool transition between those pieces, between those moments, just kind of to fill the space, kind of going from one scene to the next.
I think you see if you go and watch the movie American Graffiti, that you see that this has its roots in American Graffiti. Again, a George Lucas movie, one of George Lucas's early movies, which is it's teenage movie. It's an ensemble cast, and they're driving around, and it's teenagers, and so that you can see that this is kind of an homage to American Graffiti.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people compare this movie to it whenever I was looking stuff up about it.
And that's the thing. I mean, not to wax poetic about the good old days, but you don't.
Like you're going to wax poetic about the good old days.
Exactly. But you don't have this spread word of mouth, literally word of mouth about Party at the Moon Tower, and everybody gathering together at a central location to talk, because you would just text people or group text people. That's kind of the isolation of society today, even though, I'm not anti-isolation. I've already made it clear I don't like people, so I don't have a problem with that. But, it's also that it shows you the socialization of having a spot, like literally almost all small towns in Texas have a Dairy Queen. And that's where people gather, and then they drive a strip where it may have two lights, and they drive back and they end up at the Dairy Queen. You see that all the time. And that's what I guess we kind of miss out. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but it's just one of those, I think, a very Americana thing to have that.
Well, and I still, like I mentioned earlier, I still think maybe not to the scale of this. Like, you're probably not going to have like a 50 or 60 people show up to this hangout or whatever. But I feel like you do still have these moments where, and nowadays where kids are out driving around, or even when I was a young adult, in my early 20s, I could remember me and Kamei just, not going on a date per se, but just going and getting in my truck, especially when I bought my new truck, just riding around.
Yep.
And, not really do anything, just listen to music, you just, hey, that's where so-and-so lives. Hey, that's where so-and-so. There's literally out just driving around, not really doing a whole lot of nothing, yep. And even I still, this we film these on a Wednesday, but I guarantee this Friday night, if you go to a Walmart parking lot in Decatur or Moulton or Hartselle or wherever you're at, I can almost guarantee that you could find kids somewhere, still probably not to the, like I said, probably not to the extent that it was in this movie or was in the 70s and 80s, but I still think it does happen on a smaller scale today.
Yeah.
Or the ones with boat go out on the creek. Because I do hear a lot of the guys that work for me that they'll show me like videos from the 4th of July, stuff like that, where there's 60 boats pulling up at the sandbar, and they all meet together at the sandbar to hang out.
After the Emporium closes, an impromptu cake party is planned in a field under a moonlight tower. Cynthia, Tony, and Mike arrive at their first cake party, where tough guy Clint Bruno threatens Mike. Tony runs into freshman Sabrina Davis, who he met earlier during the hazing, and begins spending time with her. Mike, suffering from the humiliation of his confrontation with Clint, makes a stand by punching him. In return, he gets tackled by Clint and receives a beating. Pink and Wooderson break up the fight. Football player Benny O'Donnell confronts Pink about his refusal to sign the pledge. Pink, the only player not to have signed, believes it violates his individuality and beliefs.
That's
What's a moonlight tower? What's a moonlight tower? I mean, I didn't really understand what that was.
it was that tower where you could kind of. They said no matter where you were, you could see the moon. So that's why it was called the Moon Tower, Party at the Moon Tower, because it was just a tower, like a radio tower, I think, and you climbed up it. Unless you're a freshman and you had one beer and you'd fall down and hit every rung on the way down, and look, there's blood on there. But yeah, that's why it was called the Moon Tower, just because people would literally go up there and climb up it and just kind of sit and look at them and just see the moon.
They just it's like a moon viewing tower. Is that the only reason it was there? Is like a radio tower?
No, it's a radio tower.
Okay.
So
I got
to kind of give you an example, like different places in Texas, a water tower. People would climb up water towers.
Okay.
Pump jacks. If you know what a pump jack is, that pumps looks like a cricket head or whatever, and it's pumping oil out of the ground. Idiots will climb onto those. I've seen way too many idiots who were probably in the dazed and confused state of mind climb on those bad boys a lot, and I'm like, y'all are morons, you know. But you know, and this is what I can remember parties like this in high school. I mean, probably my senior year, I went to some where they were just people. It was just people, and it was just random people at random parts, and that's where you sit down. People were drinking or not drinking, that's irrelevant. But you would sit down and have conversations with people that again, I went to a school where we had 1,500 kids in it that went to my school, and there were kids that I saw in the hallways that I never talked to, that I would sit there and have conversation with just because we were at the same place, you know, and nobody was necessarily that. You have the one guy that, you know, that got all bent out of shape and and those two guys fighting, but everybody else is just, they're out there having a good time, you know, and it's just, and that was kind of reminiscent for me of just seeing that. Now it also reminds me of a lot of stuff that I tell some of my students back in the day. You know, especially I talked to the freshman girls that I had in class. I was like, beware of senior and junior boys because they're going to be coming after you. And you want to know why? And they'll say, well, why? I said, because the senior and junior girls have already seen through all their BS. So they have to go after freshman girls who don't know their BS. And so that's why they're coming after you. So be careful about that. And you see this from even the good guy, you know, to all over the place. I mean, that's why at prom you see so many senior boys taking freshman girls.
I've heard this conversation from you before.
Again, I said,
people this.
Yeah,
it's almost like I was in your class for 2 years.
So, you know, but then also this is also another part. This part of the movie too. Slater or Slate, the stoner, the real stoner guy, who after McConaughey was the best part of the movie also, because he's the one that started talking about Martha Washington. He was on the moon tower whenever Mitch was climbing up talking about falling off. He was the one that was always spouting some weird stuff off, and that was just kind of go, oh, I think, well, he was the one that George Washington had an alien cult, you know. It was just he was always entertaining over and over and over again every time he showed up. So him and McConaughey, when they showed up on the screen, I enjoyed everything about them when they were on the scene.
You got anything, Suggs?
No, I don't. Well, Mitch leaves the cake party with Julie. They drive to a nearby hill overlooking town to make out. Tony gives Sabrina a ride home and they kiss goodnight. As night turns to dawn, Pink, Wooderson, Don, Ron Slater, and several other friends decide to smoke marijuana on the 50-yard line of the football field, where Wooderson advises Pink to keep living without concern for what is expected of him. The police arrive, and upon recognizing Pink and Don, call Coach Conrad their football coach. Conrad lectures Pink about hanging out with losers and insists he sign the pledge. Pink says that he might play football, but he will not sign it, and leaves with Wooderson and Slater to travel to Houston to obtain tickets to an Aerosmith concert. Mitch arrives home after sunrise to find his mother has waited up for him. She decides against punishment but warns him about coming home late again. Mitch goes to his bedroom, puts on headphones, and listens to Slow Ride by Foghat as Pink, Wooderson, Slater, and Simone Kerr travel down a highway to purchase their tickets.
So
it's not the worst advice. Now, granted, the coach only cares about winning, so he doesn't really care about the well-being of the player. But it's not the worst advice in the world to tell him not to hang out with some of these people that he's hanging out with.
As a coach, don't make a rule if you're not going to enforce it. And if you're making everybody sign that and your starting quarterback doesn't sign it, what are you going to do? It's like a story I heard Mac Brown talk about. He said, I used to have rules about length of hair until Ricky Williams played for me. That rule went out the window with his dreads. Said, I threw that rule out because that's how good of a player he was. And I was like, and hey, Pink got that form and he threw that paper straight. He threw a dart in the truck with that piece of paper. I'm like, he's going to throw for 2,000 yards in 1976. You might not want to make them sign these.
No, I mean, hey, look, this is back in 1976, so I mean, you literally didn't see the players. It wasn't like these days where players get a week off and then they're at workouts for 3 or 4 days a week during the summer. So I'd be like, look, just show up to fucking July, August, whatever it was.
So here you go, Suggs. I mean, since you are a sports writer, so I graduated in 1992. Our coaches were not allowed to hold workouts. They could open the weight room and they could sit in the office, but they could not be there we had no practices. We had no organized workouts. You could go in, you signed in, you went and worked out, you did some running or something on your own, and and there was nothing, no football related stuff like that at all. Now, we also had 2-a-days and 3-a-days too, so that was way back in the day.
I understand what you're saying, and the way y'all used to do it was completely stupid.
100%. I mean,
that is. I can't think of anything more, especially when in Alabama or Texas where it gets super hot in August. You're like, these kids have not been working out for a whole summer, so to get them in shape, we're gonna make them do 2 to 3 practices a day in the August heat. That is about the most dangerous thing I can. And also, this is back in the day where you have coaches like, we don't do water breaks around here.
Yeah, we all drink Mountain Dew.
We had the PVC pipe that had the water hose at the end with holes drilled in it, and it was just spouting water out. So you just went in there, no water pressure. So you put your finger on about 5 of those holes, so more water would come out, and just get that, man. Yeah, you shoot. If kids had to go through what we had to go through, man, there would be no football whatsoever.
It's a miracle y'all made it through that, okay?
I know. My offensive line coach, very first thing he said to us, he said, I got fired for hitting a kid. I can find another job if I hit one of y'all. I was like, alrighty then. Somebody popped his mouth off at him in the weight room. He was on him just like that, and he had a 10-pound plate at that kid's throat. Now, would I run through a brick wall for that man? 100% I would. He never yelled at us, but he did call us a bunch of blue-eyed Wonder Bread white boys all the time. And he was funny. He was funny. But no, yeah, golly, I shudder thinking about the high school football when I played. Just like, oh my goodness.
So, as far as the movie goes, this was one of the things that I think made, Pink, more one of the most relatable characters in here, especially when he said his line about the all I'm saying is that if I ever start referring to these as the best years of my life, remind me to kill myself. And I think, that kind of, and I don't want to really say humanize him because he was the one who, then he was one of the ones that broke up the fight. He was the one who, after everybody, paddled Mitch and, did whatever, he was the one who drove the kid home. And, he's always kind of the nicer guy throughout the whole movie. But I think this kind of really made his character relatable when he was just like, hey, look, I don't want to peak right here and in the state championship game, my senior year of high school, and then the rest of my life is downhill. I think you see a little bit more of the anxiety of why he's not signing this form. I think it's less about somebody making a decision for him and more about him just being like, okay, like I'm worried that this is the best it's ever going to get for me. And I kind of like that for his character and to be able to see that,
Yeah, he is the antithesis of O'Banion, who that dude, he will still be talking about his high school days forever.
Mm-hmm.
Wooderson is the one that I wasn't sure because he didn't seem to be living in the glory days. To me, he was living in an opportunist days. Again, when statutory rape didn't exist, I guess, he was just, he was out to have a good time. I go to college, but I don't want to learn something from buying the stuff I know guys more about. And plus I want a little change in my pocket too, which again, was kind of funny. Mitch said the exact same speech to the liquor store guy. But that's why Wooderson's such because it's easy to like Pink. It's easy to hate O'Banion. Wooderson, it's like I still don't the character I like, but the person I'm like, I don't know how I feel about him. Again, he is creepy, so let's take the creepy stuff away because it is what it is. But just his philosophy of life, you're like, I can understand that. Is it the right way to think? I don't know, but I can definitely understand it. It's not like O'Banion where I'm 100% against him. He's just a turd,
Yeah.
So that's why again McConaughey's character is just interesting.
So I think McConaughey's character kind of falls into this middle of the line person that in life you don't hear a lot about them. So in life, you're going to hear a lot about two different types of people in life. You're going to hear a lot about the people who are high achievers, the people who want a lot from life, the people who want to be CEOs and lawyers and doctors and, to earn a lot, and their goal is, hey, I'm trying to make as much money as I can or whatever it is. But then you have on the flip side of that, you have the people who are just, who are low income or deadbeats or whatever you want to say that they are, that are just there at the bottom, and you have those type of people with it. But then you have people who are in the middle, who are kind of just like, hey, like I don't care about making a bunch of money. I just want to I want to make enough to live. I just like he makes his whole speech about living in the moment and doing what's best for him. He's like, I don't want to go be a millionaire. I don't want to go, own a company or have much stress stuff like that. And I don't want to go and I don't want to, just, so live off of everybody else's stuff. He said, I kind of want to go make enough money to live my life and then go on about it. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing about his character is he kind of personifies, I think, a lot more people than what we realize, and he's willing to be, I don't want to go get a college degree. I don't want to go try to make a 6-figure job or anything like that. I want to go make my money and then go on about my day,
I think he's very comfortable with being Wooderson. He's comfortable with that. To me, I just wrote this down. I was like, he's a person that you like. He's a person that you don't mind hanging out with, but you're 100% don't want to be him.
Yeah.
Again, O'Banion, there's nothing to like about O'Banion at all, But Wooderson, he's an enjoyable hang. He's a good guy to hang around. He's not necessarily problematic. He's a good guy, but you 100%, I don't want to turn out to be like him. I don't mind being around him, but I don't want to be him.
And if this movie was written nowadays, Wooderson's character would be the weird 22, 23, 24-year-old who still hangs around high schoolers and buys beer for them. He would be that not necessarily the creepy old guy, but they're just like you said, the guy that everybody wants to hang around with. But the teenagers really want to hang around him because they think he's cool, because they think he's whatever, and he buys them beer.
And red's my favorite color.
Golly, man.
God. At least she was a senior.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what. I looked at that quote. It said, "That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same
say
age."
that. I'm like, it's like, ha ha ha. Oh wait,
Wait,
that's awful.
wait.
That is awful.
I remember when he said that. I looked at Kamei, and both our mouths, my mouths were just wide open. Just, did he really say that? Like, come on,
Yeah,
guy.
yeah. I was like, man, that's such a funny. No, that's not a funny line at all. So
But also, these kids, and then this just goes to show how stupid kids are going to make a. They're in Austin, Texas, right?
yeah.
And they're driving to Houston to get these
Yeah, that's
Aerosmith
about
tickets.
That's a 4 hour drive. After they've been up all night, they're drunk and high.
Yeah, I was like,
and they're still smoking in the back because Slate's still smoking in the back seat,
Yeah.
blowing the smoke into the girl's face.
yeah, I don't know what parents going to let you make an all day trip on that. Just they didn't come home this night, not either. By the way, they
No.
left like the previous afternoon. We're out all night drinking and smoking and everything, and then they're going to leave that morning to go to Austin or drive to Houston to get these tickets.
Woodard said, "Man, I can do this job in my sleep, man. What are you talking about?"
I'm getting my third win.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the movie. Guys, you got anything to add before we move on to our rankings?
Nope, we can just go straight to the rankings. Rankings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'll go first. I hadn't seen this movie, but I had seen a lot of clips of it, just mostly the McConaughey clips, so I knew a little bit about it coming in. But it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. I think we talked about it. There's not a central conflict, but that's okay. It works. I mean, it gives you I think the coolest thing about it is, like I said, it's just a time capsule into 1978, 76. And I think it fully embraces that high school culture in that time. And you get a lot of great characters in it, a lot of unknown actors at the time, but actors now that you can look back and be like, oh, that's Ben Affleck, or that's Cole Hauser, or Matthew McConaughey, obviously. So that's always pretty cool when you can watch one of those early movies and see these people that weren't known commodities yet and recognize all of them. And even some minor characters too. And then obviously the soundtrack is fantastic. I mean, you just sit there and listen to all these great songs. So it's pretty fun. I enjoyed it. I'll give it a 7.5.
You can go ahead first.
Again, when I first watched this, again, I thought it was just a quote machine. But when I watched it this time, I guess it's the eyes of being older. Is I did enjoy the conversations, the relationships, the intermingling of the different people going in and out. Even as awful as the actor Mitch was, that played Mitch was, it worked because he was an 8th grade kid, going to be a freshman. So the awkwardness, really kind of worked for me there. I don't think of this as a comedy necessarily. I think there's funny parts to this, but to me, I don't think this is a comedy. Again, I think it's more of a coming to life or coming of age movie than a comedy. Again, per se, it's kind of like, I guess, Breakfast Club. People say it's a comedy, but I think it's more of a coming of age with funny parts to it. But in saying that, I enjoyed this a lot more than what I thought, because coming into this, my score was going to reflect Caleb's score when I came into this. That's where I originally was going into it. But now watching it over again, I think it's I think it's a little, for me, it's a little bit better than that. So I am going to go with an 8.25.
So, don't get me wrong. Overall enjoyment of the movie. If I'm sitting down and I'm like, I'm wanting to watch a movie, this probably isn't going to be the movie that I pick, if I'm being honest. It's not necessarily that it's bad. I wish it had a plot line to it. I wish it had something that kind of kept me intrigued or kept me interested, or what's going to happen next or something like that. This was just this just didn't have it. I really wish that there's that aspect of movies that I really enjoy, and even some other bad movies that I've watched, at least even like the whatever that bad movie we watched, Lost in America was, like it had a plot line, it had a storyline to it. It had, it had whatever it was, they were trying to get from point A to point B, and this just didn't even have that. It was just them hanging out, and then I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. Obviously it works. Some people like it, and it's accumulated a cult following. But it didn't work for me, and I didn't really like that. It does have some redeeming qualities to it, though. Like we mentioned, the soundtrack. I think all of the really cool car shots in it. Them riding around the car in the cars. Them going in between the scenes and stuff like that. Like I talked about earlier, I really loved it. Even some of the cinematography in it was done pretty well, and I did enjoy it. I feel like this movie would do a lot better if it had a central plot line to follow, and it just doesn't. But I think because of that, I'm going to give this movie a 7.
All right, so that's a 8.25 from Ernie, a 7.5 from me, and a 7 from Dakota. That averages out to a 7.58. Ernie, where does that put us on our rankings?
That puts us at 44. It will be in between, go figure, Beverly Hills Cop and Young Guns. So both are mine movies. So that figures. That's
Beverly
a nice
Hills
placement.
Cop was it yours? Yours a year.
Oh, well, that's right. No, it's just a movie I liked.
It was the first episode you were on.
That's right. And our rankings were very similar. Right.
All right, and all right, so a 7.58 that puts it at 44. Is that what you said? Tied for 44. All right, and if you'd like to see that full rankings list, you can go to podpage.com/classicblockbusters. That's podpage.com/classicblockbusters. You can find our full rankings list on there, as well as our individual rankings, what movies we individually have picked, our episodes, and all other stuff. Ernie does that. We appreciate that. You can find us on social media, Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast, or you can find us on Twitter/X at BlockbusterPod1. We have a new episode coming out every Thursday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. My pick next, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, and it's football season, so that means it's time for another football movie, much to Dakota's supreme delight, which I guess he likes football more than any other sport, right?
Yeah, I watch it more than any other movie or any other sport.
But had it down to 2 movies. I decided not to go with what Ernie coined as the beathead choice, just for Dakota, so we'll do Varsity Blues next week, which I don't know how much less meathead that is, but I guess it's less meathead than the other one, right?
And I have not seen this movie.
Oh, you have not seen this movie?
I've seen bits and pieces, but I have not seen this movie. So this is, I feel like I need Dakota's a shirt that says I have not seen this movie. So
I think
I'm not
you'll
alone.
Nope.
All right, so that's what we'll do next week. We'll do Varsity Blues next week. 7.58 for Dazed and Confused. That's what we had this week, tied for 44th. Guys, anything to add before we wrap up?
We'll just see you at the movies next week.